Say that again, Mark, because you taught that to the group of pastors that were here, and that's why this is working.
The mission, I told the pastors, and I've shared it with our team. You've heard me say this. The boss didn't change on February 2nd because the boss was always the mission. And so we're just, and in this seat, I'm just the one that helps make sure we're focused on that mission day in and day out completely as a team, which is even why we're spending so much time as a team, making sure that there's no cracks in that, in a transition moment, leaning in, saying it's the same mission.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the GrowLeader Podcast, where we grow leaders that grow churches by helping them reach their full potential. My name is Matt, and I'm so glad you're hanging out with us today, sitting right beside my founding pastor and also my lead pastor, which we're going to get into in just a second. This is a new day. PC, how we doing?
I'm doing very well. We're gonna have a great day today at Highlands College, and we've got Chris Tomlin in town, and he's doing his live recording at Highlands College. He hadn't recorded songs for 3 years since Holy Forever. And so he's doing his newest songs. We're hearing them for the first time. We had a great recording last night. We're going to do it all over again today. And he's going to be in residence today because he's one of the professors here at Highlands College. So I've got a great day ahead of me.
We can talk a lot about Highlands College today because we also have the previous president, or current president,
former president of
Highlands College. Pastor Mark, how we doing?
I'm doing so good today, and I'm excited about Chris Tomlin. And honestly, I think we should have a staff evaluation right now. You're right here in the middle. Let's just.
I'm in. You guys would have already told me.
Let's talk about Matt Minor today.
Anything that I need to know, you've already told me. So that's
Do you really think so?
I hope so.
Okay.
Let's wait for the other stuff.
This was just a setup, actually, for you.
That's great. Hey, so we're going to follow up the conversation we had with you, Pastor Chris, just a couple weeks ago about the transition and get Pastor Mark.
The transition of roles.
The transition of roles.
I like the full sentence.
Yeah, transition of roles. So you're to clarify, if you've not listened to part one of this or the main episode from this month, tell everybody what happened. Just a quick recap.
Yeah, on February 2nd, we actually announced to the church that I would step into a new role. And my favorite line that I'm using in this whole thing, and I'm going to keep saying it because people keep asking me, how's retirement going? Or, how, that I stepped off of something, I'm out, or, I'm not out of anything, really. I'm still in the same missional family with a different role. I was the papa, I was the daddy of the house, so to speak, and now I'm the grandfather in the house, but still have a role in the family. So that's my favorite. And we made that announcement to our church. Gosh, it's been, about almost 50 days now?
Yeah, and 45 days or so. Who's counting?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can just attest that he is, I think, busier than he's ever been. There is no retirement in this man's blood. So it's been fun to watch that.
So we want to dig in today to Pastor Mark, to your perspective in all of this. And it's as a person on the staff team of Church of the Highlands, it's been a ton of fun, and we've kind of seen it coming for a couple of years.
Thank you.
Not knowing what was going to happen, it's been a ton of fun though to watch it and see all that you're doing with Highlands College. And the way Pastor Mark's leading, he's been leading the campus pastors for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it's been incredible. And so it's fun to sit here and be air traffic control for this conversation.
And that's
today.
the part that people don't know is how much actually we were already doing. In fact, I really began thinking about it in 2019. And then COVID comes along, right? And everything needed to be kind of rebuilt again, because you never want to pass the torch or, transition your role out of something into something else or give it to someone else. When the bell curve is down and to the left, you want it up and to the right. You want everything going extremely well. And so we spent the last, 4 years really rebuilding the church. And it was about 2.5 years ago, to recap, that Mark walked into my office and said, for me, Mark, it was the tipping point of the whole journey 2.5 years ago when you said, man, I'm grateful that I get to lead this college. I'm grateful that you've allowed me to build this college, which I really did. I really empowered you to take the full reins of the accreditation, the getting into this Grandview facility, all of that. But you said, man, I love the college. And almost, you were saying it almost like, I don't want to insult you by saying what I'm going to say next. I hope you don't get discouraged by what I'm getting ready to say.
I was actually more feared, I hope he doesn't fire me from the president's role, because it wasn't. I was sharing vision about the church, but it wasn't that I didn't love the college. It was just a God thing.
Exactly. And you said, I love the college, but I wake up every day with ideas for the church. And I said, well, that's interesting because I love the church, but every day I wake up with new ideas for the college. And that's when we both knew, okay, we didn't even know how long it was going to be. Yeah. We said, we've got to start the journey of kind of, changing seats, so to speak. Same family, different role.
So in those early conversations, I want to know the human side.
Yeah.
So was there fear? Was there awkwardness? Was there because there's such deep honor in the room. for
Yeah,
sure.
and I would say, and I have to say this. I know we're getting to the conversation, but I've shared this a couple times since February 2nd. But Chris Hodges is an iceberg. So what we all see on top is amazing, but I can attest through this whole process, what I've seen underneath is even bigger. There's more
that's
underneath, and I've gotten to see that I think firsthand, honestly, through this whole process. I wouldn't say awkward. I will say this, and I think this is important for anyone that might be listening in kind of that second chair. You know, if your ambition is a role, that's a whole nother thing. That's I've never had an ambition for a role. I love the mission that we're on together.
Right.
And so it wasn't me stepping in, and even when I shared vision, it wasn't like I had a role in mind. It was just I knew God was doing something. So it was almost like honestly, PC, the safety I felt with you to release that burden to just say, I'm dreaming about the church.
Right.
And knowing that it was safe, not even knowing what it was attached to. He could have said, I want you to do whatever. And I would have, it wasn't even about that. It was just the safety of our relationship, being able to share that. But it was a little bit surreal, just to actually have that moment of conversation.
Well, and we have an environment at Highlands where PC, you love it when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I've got vision for fill in the blank."
Right.
It's not a wait till somebody asks me to do it. You love it when
Because I want to be a part of the process. I didn't like it when any leader said, "Hey, I've already processed all of this and I'm leaving," or "I've already processed all this and I'm changing role." Like let me be a part of the process with you.
Which there's a leadership lesson there because both of you always said, "Hey, God may have other things for you to do. Just keep me in the process. Let me be a part of
Which
it."
it takes a lot of security on his part, but also in this case, my part or any of our parts stepping into that position. But it's huge. Without that, I think that's one of the secret behind why so many people on our team have been here for so long is that security in the relationship. And as God is moving, we're able to share that, and that's a big deal.
And we've all decided that we're a part of the same mission.
Yeah.
So what seat we sit in is really, it's important, but it's not all important because we all win together, we all cry together, we all pray together. We're doing this together, So we're not fighting for a role or a seat. We're just glad we get to be on the team.
That is the culture here.
Right.
It's awesome. So first job, first action. First thing you did as lead pastor of Church of the Highlands.
I gotta. Sorry, I've got to say this.
I got choked up there. Huh?
I did. That got me. I have to say this. You only have your first thing once, right? Whatever you do first, it's not everything, but it's a big deal. And I think 45 days in, I'm not bragging, but I think I crushed my first action. Is it okay if I share this? So this actually speaks to Pastor Chris's humility. Is part of this whole process. Is he on the other side of this transition of roles? He's not sitting as a trustee in our church or even as an overseer. He truly transitioned roles. And in this season, his focus on Highlands College, and I think there is a future in some of those roles personally for me, but I think in this season, there's a lot of wisdom in his decisions. So actually, the first thing I did as lead pastor of Church of the Highlands was rehire.
Yeah.
which is a crazy moment. Rehire Chris Hodges as our founding pastor.
That's surreal.
There's a role that's a very important role in my mind, in our hearts, and of course for our church. And so we had a conversation.
Yeah.
You see, this was so crazy, where he was actually saying, this is again his humility. Are you okay if I keep my office? And I'm like, yes, sir. Are you okay? If I keep my assistant around me to help me organize? Yes, sir. Whatever you need, you can have. But I think that's the best hire in the history of the church. I hired Chris Hodges.
Well, thank you.
That's pretty awesome. That's a great way to start off your tenure as lead pastor at Church of the Highlands.
Yeah.
So I know this, but I would love for just our listeners to know. We seek wise counsel and everything, and the two of you went on a journey with advisors and really seeking wise counsel. You've described it as kind of premarital counseling. What were the things that you guys learned through that about this transition maybe you didn't know before?
So I think one of the most important things in a healthy transition is the values, like concrete, are already set in this house. And so the values are never up for debate. And I'm thankful over the last 20 years that Pastor Chris's DNA, and this would be the same for you, Matt, I see it in the core team here, and really in the whole team here, it's our DNA. So those values were set. So we weren't, I knew going in, that was already set. We kind of already had that conversation. But when you started talking about the practical pieces of it, I think the best thing we did was bring someone in.
Right.
And it really was like a premarital counselor. Because now we're just talking about, any and every conversation about what this was going to look like, minus the values. The values were set, but how it was going to look, timing, different roles. I mean, offices, like all these different things, even practical things. We had that conversation. And I don't think we could have done that just he and I. I think we wouldn't have even known the questions to ask.
Yeah, and probably the best question, it was the first question was, give us your strategic growth plan or the things you'll change. What's basically when you get to have the pen in your hand and you're the architect now of the ministry and the programming at Church of the Highlands, what's it going to look like under your leadership? And he was given what, 2 months or so?
Yeah,
three months,
7 weeks. Yeah,
to write that out, and then we would meet again. And I was kind of bracing myself, honestly, for that because I obviously believe that what we've built is pretty good, or we wouldn't have built it, or the way we've been leading. But I remember having to make the decision that there's going to be some things that are going to be different than how I see it, and I'd already principally made up my mind that if I disagree, I will share that with him privately, but still allow him, he has to have the ability to lead that way. So I was still going to release it if I disagreed, okay? And that was true. I remember making these decisions, and that publicly I would just wave the banner and say, way to go, Mark, I'm behind you. And everybody who would eventually come to me privately, which, by the way, Mark, that has not happened in 45 days. No one said, hey, Mark's doing this, and we're, we kind of even prepared for that, but that hasn't happened. But that I would still say, man, let's get behind our pastor.
So much so that he said to me, even if you don't want to do small groups, we won't do small groups. Now, I want to say to anyone listening, we were doing small groups, but it was he was that committed to that journey. Now, for me, that 6 and 7 weeks, it was not 21 days here at Highlands, but I have never prayed harder.
Yeah.
But preparing what ended up being a slide deck presentation and then walking back in his office and saying, here's some things God is showing us, Jill and I, and for the future, and putting those, that was a surreal moment because obviously this is God's church, but he has been the architect of that.
I can't even get my head around that. Thinking about you walking in to PC and saying, if I was going to change some stuff, and I might, here's what I'm going to change.
Because our values and our mission is very aligned. Almost,
Yes.
I mean, exactly.
It's in concrete.
Yeah, because we're a Great Commission church. So whether we're going to help people find Christ and pastor people and disciple people and mobilize people is not even up for debate because we don't even think that as ours. We really believe that's the mission God has given his church. And the values, as he said, were already in stone. But he needed the opportunity to lead differently because he's a very different leader from me. In fact, when we were in the office discussion, I could see panic on your face because I was thinking, why don't you take this office? And you said to me, I'll never forget the moment. You said, PC, I want to lead the staff differently, and I was excited about that and thinking, are you saying I'm not leading it right? But it wasn't right or wrong, and that people shouldn't miss this. It was style was different, and a person should be able to lead in their own style. Mark would rather have a cubicle among all the other staff right in the middle than have an office. Which I don't even think that way. I do my best thinking when I'm alone. Mark does his best thinking when there's a boatload of people around him. And so he had to have the ability to lead the way he wanted to lead.
And I will say this, for me, those moments, probably the greatest personal journey for me in Galatians 4:19 is Christ being formed inside of me. I mean, those were moments where I had to step into. He was inviting me in. Pastor Chris invited me in. It was a safe place, but I still had to step into the confidence of, this was the revelation for me, maybe the greatest personal revelation, is I will never fill Chris Hodges' shoes, but I can follow in his footsteps if I'm authentically myself. And I think that was a huge part of that journey.
Yeah.
So you guys have talked about, even to our staff, which I want to say this, just the clarity with the staff. No one was ever wondering what was happening because there was so much clarity, which is that's a whole principle right there. So there wasn't this fear on the staff team. There was this comfort of like, man, PC's excited, we're excited, Mark's excited, here we go. But in the moments of, hey, I want to change this, or hey, I want to move my office to some other place, where are the moments for you of going, is this the right call? Is that where is the point where you felt like you could kind of shift passion, push one way or another, or was it just like, hey, I trust Mark completely, this is going to be great?
Well, I do trust Mark completely, and this is going to be great. But we did have the conversation of, for the sake of people who aren't leaders like us and love change and love activity and love a new initiative, because 70% of all people have that phlegmatic personality. In the DISC profile, it's the S, and they hate change. They like steady, stable. We knew that there were some things that just for the sake of perceptions and and not even perceptions of being not shaking things up too much too fast. We made a decision of things that were not going to change, even though he wants to change. So we had conversations about different conferences we do, and I remember having the conversation like, why don't we leave that one alone? You still get to make the call if you're going to change it. I'm just giving you my opinion right now. But why don't we leave that one alone for the first year, just so for all the I think the animal that they liken the S personality to is that Labrador. I always had that person in my mind, just like, come home every day at the same time and let's, do the same thing. 7 out of 10 people have that personality. Let's let that's not a hill we should die on right now or a change that it would even make that big a difference. Let's leave that alone. And so we had conversations like that. And I think that's one of the healthiest things that we did.
And I think that even shifted the gear shifted in our relationship. So we've talked on the phone. We've even, in parking lots, there are continual our conversations look different now in this new season, but I'm going to him for wisdom, and that's just healthy change management. That's just the wisdom of a leader,
right,
who has led in a large space for a long time, having that wisdom, and I'm seeking that. And I'm not I think the DNA statement earlier, because Jill and I have grown up here, and our DNA is this house. There's no massive radical changes coming anyway. So the wisdom is we have the next 15, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, it would be things like, we're going to do this at 6 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They were small in that way, but I still, even some of these we thought, but that might be a disruptor for those who are just almost sensitive to what changes are going to be made. But at the same time, a bunch of changes have already been made, especially in his leadership style. You felt it.
100%.
Just yesterday, he's down in Montgomery having a team meeting with all the campuses that are closer to Montgomery. I never did that. I probably should have done that. And he called me and said, man, we had an amazing day today. And I didn't go, man, I wish I'd have thought of that. I'm like celebrating it all along the way. I'm so excited about the fresh energy and the passion, especially as it relates to the team.
Yeah.
Well, I think the way you've paced out vision change, not vision change, mission change, but even internally is refreshing, because it can be too much. Somebody could go too fast. And somebody made the comment, I don't know which one of you said this, but the sheep are eating on good grass. Let's not move them.
Yeah.
Leave them where they are. So, Mark, I want to get into, we've talked about from the developer standpoint, and people have asked Pastor Chris, how long did it take to develop Mark? And you said 20
plus years.
Yeah, long time. What's the responsibility of the developee? So somebody who is in a second or third seat, who feels like God's got more for me, how can we be learners to get ready for the seat God has for us one day?
Honestly, thank you for asking that question. I almost feel a mandate now in this season of my life to share the answer to this. Because a lot of young leaders have a lot of vision. And I think there's so many different stories. So just speaking principally here, not contextually to everyone's story, I think the greatest thing any leader can do is put mission in the middle. And when I say that, what I mean is to lay ambition, or even in ministry now, there's so many different, almost like side trails you can take. They're good, but they're more about us in some ways. They can become more about us than even ultimately a shared mission of God in a local community like a church. So I just think putting that great commission in the middle and saying, it's not about me. It's not about my brand. It's not about my role. It's about what can I do in every single season to serve the mission. The mission is the boss. And that's what Pastor Chris has done from day one.
Say that again, Mark, because you taught that to the group of pastors that were here. And that's why this is working.
The mission, I told the pastors, and I've shared it with our team. You've heard me say this. The boss didn't change on February 2nd. Because the boss was always the mission.
It was never me.
So
it was always the Great Commission.
And so we're just, and in this seat, I'm just the one that helps make sure we're focused on that mission day in and day out completely as a team, which is even why we're spending so much time as a team, making sure that there's no cracks in that, in a transition moment, leaning in, saying, it's the same mission. Let's go for the next 24, let's 25, whatever. So I think that's the big deal. And I think what Pastor Chris gave me, I do believe Jill and I, through the grace of God, have stayed focused on the mission. And then what he gave me, really 3 things I've shared. He's an incredibly clear leader. He makes the touchdown very clear. And that creates, and he doesn't have these days where he's up and down, and it's very consistent and clear. And then he's allowed us over time to starting with small things, which is wisdom, but over and over to have a sandbox to learn and grow, where he would say, I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm going to give you the touchdown. That's permission to play. But now go, develop, grow. And then that strengthened, ultimately, the third thing, our relationship. So for 24 years, we've been building this deep relationship, which is why that DNA transfer is here. So I think all those things together.
Because I gave him my most precious idea, honestly, to date, which was Highlands College.
Yep.
And I actually stepped away from it and let him he uses the term sandbox, but he stepped into that space, and I said, here's the touchdown line, go build it. I never really spoke that much into the architecture of the buildings, the accreditation process, the type of academics we would have on campus, all of that. I gave the 30,000-foot view vision. Here's what I want to accomplish, and let him build. But that was all training for what I knew was coming. As we saw this 6 years ago, that this some kind of transition is going to take place at some time. And one of the questions that a lot of people are asking too, Matt, is about why now, like the exact timing side of all this. Because I'm 61, I still feel like I'm in my prime. That if I wanted to lead the church, I still have a lot in the in the gas tank right now. So I don't feel old or tired. As people asking me, are you getting some rest? Like, well, first of all, I wasn't tired, and second of all, I rest in May and June. I don't rest right now. So my rhythms haven't changed at all. But the timing was, for me, is that simply a vision issue. And I don't want people that are listening to miss this, because I have a philosophy. It's almost a theology that the leader of anything is the one who has the blueprint for it. So, like, how do you find the leader for a youth ministry? It's not just the most dynamic person you have on your team.
Right.
It's when you go to them and say, hey, if I gave this to you, what would it look like? And if they can describe vivid vision and dynamic things they would do, they're probably the person, because I truly believe the person that God wants in positions gets exclusively, by the way, almost exclusively, the blueprint. They see something, they have vision. And so the tipping point for me was, again, is that Mark was actually having more vision for the church than I was. Still love the church. And I feel like when I was preaching, I was still at my best, and I was still giving it all. I hadn't cut down the amount of study time or the time I was spending with a team, but I was, best way to say it, and maybe this is the first time a lot of people are hearing it, I was almost vision tired with the church. A few things I was putting on cruise control just because they were working, and inherently I knew I can't sustain an organization like this very long on a cruise control kind of mindset. On the other hand, had all of this vision. I was waking up every day adding 5 more things to my to-do list on Highlands College. I had, oh man, we ought to do this, we ought to do. And what was happening was, because it was time for me to step into not a 20% level of effort in Highlands College, but an 80% effort in the school, which is about what it was and what this switch of roles has allowed me to do, that I had all these ideas and things that I wanted to do. It was time for me to step into that seat, and I'll let Mark take the seat of senior pastor. So that's what dictated the timing of all this.
Well, we do get asked that, and I think that people build their own narratives, and so I've had people walk up to me and say, "Hey, how's it going?" Like this, and I'm like, "It's awesome. It's been super good, and then we get the best of both worlds with both of you in your roles." I want to know, what's it like now thinking about a message every Sunday?
Okay. I may be the only one, PC, that's ever felt this, but did y'all know Sunday happens every week?
Every week.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Sundays. Yeah. I had no idea.
Welcome to my world.
There are a lot of Sundays in a year. I will say this, though. I've always been honored and just grateful to preach or communicate at any level God's word. Thank you, God, for choosing me. It's an honor. It's a privilege to be on this, in any platform. I will say this, the thing that's changed, I love to study, and I have a long way to go as a communicator. He's the best mentor ever and gives me great feedback, and I'm learning and growing. Every time I come off, there's the practical side. But the thing that has shifted is I love our church.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I walk off the stage, my heart is so full of just love for what God is doing in our community.
That's a mantle, and that's an anointing, and I say this in the positive sense of the word, it's a burden that God gives the leader. Yep. You feel the weight of people's problems, you feel the weight of people's solutions. And I'm telling you, that's on him more than me right now. And again, that's what dictated the timing.
So in that, you made a comment at some point, I don't know if we said it on the podcast or not, that you wanted someone speaking to parents of young kids who had young kids
in their home.
Dig into that a little bit, because that's where we are right now. Because Mark has 4 boys at home that are, they're in the
all
10,
different seasons,
10 to 17 range. Yeah, trying to figure it out.
So one of my disadvantages as a leader, which by the way, I could have still led in this because I have such good counsel around me, people like Mark, was that I really don't get culture right now. I don't understand, the AI movement. I really don't understand, some of the cultural issues, social issues that people are debating and trying to deal with. And so I've been found when I was giving the answers I would have said 20 years ago when I was a bit more culturally relevant. And I actually got concerned with that. So my challenge was at that point was either to go learn it and immerse myself in it so I have some answers, or look to those who are living in the middle of it with kids in their homes, and I was just glad actually to pass that to the next generation. My grandparents don't understand a lot of things, right? Because they lived in a different generation. But man, they sure are great when they're telling stories. You kind of, they make probably better food. You know what I'm saying? They're just kind of fun to be around in a different kind of a way. I kind of want to be that person in the family right now.
Yeah, I would say that's such a gift. Such a gift because his wisdom isn't cluttered.
Yeah.
And Pastor Chris has a way to speak in the middle of any situation without having a lot of the context or the noise around it. He can just speak to the heart of the issue. And he's done that in so many different ways and so relevant. And so, it's the wisdom of God inside of him that comes out in the middle of that. That is such a shining light for me. And I'm so grateful. So
what are you most excited about for the next 12 months of Church of the Highlands as you lead in this space? What are you focused on most? Help somebody who's just started.
I think every single day. I'll share this. Driving down 280 the other day, which is never really practically a great experience. 280,
but it sure gives you a lot of time.
That's a really busy road in Birmingham, Alabama that we all try to avoid.
So I'm driving down the road, and for the first time in my life, I was actually sick. I had COVID. COVID still exists. I didn't know that. I've kind of forgotten about it. So wasn't feeling good. Was trying to work through all of that, and I just had this moment in my car, worship's playing, where I said I was made to do this. It just literally dropped in my heart. And I think every day for us, for Jill and I think we're taking steps into the unknown. We're so full of faith and love for our church, so full of love for Pastor Chris, so excited for the future. And there's a lot of unknown, but inside of that is just this faith muscle being built. And I think what I'm most excited about is the story that God is writing here at Highlands.
Yeah.
That because of Pastor Chris's faithfulness, because of the vision, all the gift set inside of him, the way this whole thing is set up with a resource and with a house of prayer, founded on God's word, the purity of all of that there's a massive future in front of us. And we don't know that whole story yet, but I think the excitement is that God is writing it. And it's just, I think all of us at Highlands, just the faith is being built for it.
It's awesome. You're doing an amazing job. It's fun to be in the room and just feel the energy in the staff team. PC, you're not retiring. I want to say that again. He is not retired at all.
It's not even in my theology to retire. Even if I wasn't a part of Highlands College, I still wouldn't retire. I'm going to give every last breath of my life, and I go on record right now. We'll give every last breath of my life as long as I have energy and ability in my body and in my mind to do it. I'm going to serve God to the end of my life. And it's not even like serving him out of obligation or duty. I love it.
That's great.
I hope to be pouring into pastors and leaders and building a great college for a long time. I'm really inspired by a mentor of mine, Dr. Nito Cubain, who we've had on the podcast before, who is 74 years old, built 108 buildings in the past 17, 18 years, debt-free, by the way, who still has energy like he's 25 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, he still works harder than anybody I know, is up at 4 o'clock, reading for 2 hours, spending time with God, leading this great university. And it's people like him that inspire me that, man, if this guy can do it, so can I. So I think, and again, I'm going to go on record, I haven't even told you this yet. This happened in my prayer time this week, that I think I have 25 good years in me. That puts me at 86 years old, and I feel like the Lord's given me a new burden and vision to not only build this university, but that once we get ours to capacity, which we think we will in the next 4 to 6 years, have it at the capacity of where I see it in my mind, that we're now to give this model away to other universities, because we don't need one of these, we need 100 of these. And my hope and my dream is that this trend of declining number of pastors in America, that we now turn it where it's back up. And here, I'm going to say it publicly, I want to raise in the next 25 years 100,000 new pastors in America.
Wow.
Now I'm reverse engineering that to what would it take for there to be 100,000 new pastors in America alone. Over the next 20, 25 years. And so I'm fired up. I'm ready to build again.
There is fire in the tank. So just a couple seconds left. Do want to ask you this question for the senior pastor who's listening, and they're thinking, man, is it time, or how do I find the next person? What practical advice would you give for how they should pray, how they should see the people around them, just the steps they should take?
Well, the most important thing any leader can do today is pour their life into the life of other leaders. Jesus did that. Jesus did not focus on his public ministry. In fact, much of his public ministry wasn't as effective as we like to think it was, because it says the Bible says that the crowd went away confused by the parable. So, and Jesus didn't even take time to clarify the parable to them. The Bible says he took the disciples, 12 off to the side, and he explained the parable to them. So he was pouring the details and the true mentorship and discipleship into disciples, and only had a 3-year ministry, of which the disciples did not want him to retire. They didn't want him to not be the lead pastor anymore. Right. They said, oh, you don't go. He goes, no. Unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it only remains a single seed. But if I'll get out of the way and pour my life into you, I can multiply my life through you. And that's the best mindset any pastor can have. I'm not saying don't focus on your public ministry and, still work on your craft. But I'm saying the best thing you'll do today is pour your life into the life of other leaders. And that's what I was doing years ago. 6 years ago, I had it narrowed down to about 8 guys that I thought that could lead it. 5 years ago, I thought there was about 5 who could do it. 2.5 years ago, I said, I think I found the person, and then went on the process to verify that. So that's what I'm encouraging pastors to do, is just don't wait pouring your life into a group of people, a small group of people that might be able to lead what you've built.
And already seeing Pastor Mark do the exact same thing. Already putting people around you all the time to lead in that way.
Yeah, that's the only way forward. And I think it's again part of that DNA that's been transferred. And you and I are sitting here as a product 100%. Of that. So I think that's, if anything else is heard today, that is it right there.
It's exciting time for Church of the Highlands.
Before you close, I just want to say publicly too how much I love you. I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job already. And I will always be waving the banner of all the things that you lead through. And it's going to be awesome.
I love you.
Couldn't believe in you more.
So I need you for the next 40 years.
Yeah, okay.
That's right. Well, founding pastor, you're here. That's amazing. Hey, if you've not watched the service where the actual public transition took place, we'll link that in the show notes. There's a whole lesson there, and just how it happened and the way that happened that day. And so we're so grateful that you're here. I'm glad that I got to sit between my founding pastor and my lead pastor. You have to come back a lot more now.
I would love to.
Okay, that's great. We'll see you next time on the GrowLeader Podcast. Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and also a big thank you to all of our partners that help make the GrowLeader Podcast happen. For over 80 years, Wesleyan Investment Foundation has helped churches with their borrowing and investing needs. And whether you're dreaming of new opportunities or seeking wise resource management, we think WIF can help you. You can learn more about them at wifonline.com/growleader. For over 30 years, One Hope has partnered with churches and ministries to impact the lives of children and youth with the message of the gospel of Christ. Through collaboration with local communities worldwide, One Hope has reached over 2 billion young people in 112 countries. Discover how you could partner with them at onehope.net/growleader. If you're looking for ways to know your people better and also grow your church at the same time, you need to know about Studio C. Studio C combines strategy, technology, and communications to maximize church member engagement. You can bridge the engagement gap and transform your church's impact with Studio C, and you can learn more about them at thestudioc.org/growleader.